What's going on, everyone? Episode 57 of Locker Talk Live. It is Monday, and that means we have our first playoff fallout, if you will, by district area is now complete. We are on to round two, and man, we got some good playoff games to talk about from this, not only from this past week, but coming up this week. Good stuff to get some of our spirits up. I know if you're someone like me that's a Texas fan, got down in the dumps on Saturday. Thankfully, my Cowboys were able to lift me up with a very dominant victory on Sunday. But before we talk about anything sports related, I always have to bring in my co-hosts and see how they're doing. So I'm gonna start with the one and only Scotty T. Scotty, how you doing, man?
I had to make sure if I was
There we
off
go.
mute
There we go.
there. It was a tough weekend for a lot of people in the college football world. While meanwhile, I'm like the Kermit the Frog little meme, just drinking my little tea because my Baylor Bears come out with a huge victory over Oklahoma. Man, I was there. It was electric. It was fun. Maybe some controversy at the end, but storming the field a little early. It's okay. It was a lot of fun. Man, Baylor's 2-0 against the SEC this year. So I'm good, baby. I'm running high. Everybody lost. Texas lost. Oklahoma lost. A&M lost. Man, it was a good weekend to be a Baylor Bear. So I'm on cloud nine, baby. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's talk about that a little bit. That the ending of that game. That was probably one of the most peculiar endings I've seen in a college football game. It kind of brings to mind, right, the Vikings Saints playoff game where kind of the Saints really didn't want to come back on the field, and I could see why. Certainly, why Riley didn't want to bring his crew back on the field. I mean, the fans had already rushed the field. You have to. They're not going to go back in the stands, which of course they didn't. You still got to play that one. And then they kick a field goal. Now I get why, that's some good saving face about the reason why he did it. But man, that's yeah, that the whole thing was just awkward, wasn't it, Scott?
Well, the reason why they stormed the field is because even the clock operator on the board, it went down to zero. So everyone was like, great, game over. Little did we know that Aranda was going to call a timeout at 3 seconds. And now we know why for the tiebreaker rules, which is so smart. Like a guy like a Randy, he's such an intellectual football mind that nobody was probably thinking about that. But it makes sense. So now Baylor owns the tiebreaker, which is could potentially be huge. I mean, seriously, that could be a potential game changer here at the end of the season. So, I mean, but big win for the Baylor Bears. That defense, man, who would have thought the Baylor Bears would be playing some defense? I loved it.
Well, I think you kind of better hope that maybe Texas and OU, especially from the case of OU, right, that they leave and don't play another year in the Big 12 because man, can you imagine next year? Let's say just hypothetically, right? I'm not saying this will happen, so take that with what it will. But let's say this is a blowout game next year. And let's say Big 12, the Oklahoma and Texas stay in the Big 12. OU's blowing out Baylor. It's like they're going to go for the juggler next year if that happens. So, man, you love
They've
that.
been going for the jugular for like 2 decades,
You're not
man.
wrong.
Like,
You're not
if
wrong.
OU's that upset about this, then like go home. There are
well,
worse things to get upset about.
well, we know you're definitely on cloud nine right now for the most part. I mean,
Nobody can rain on my parade,
well,
baby.
I mean,
Nobody.
Baylor still has some work to do, right? I think they're third in the Big 12 right now, so they still have some work to do to get into that Big 12 championship race.
Yep.
But I think they still have to play Oklahoma State because I think that's the team ahead of them right now, right, Scott?
So we played Oklahoma State. We lost. Our other loss was against TCU, which was a gut punch last week. So
So you're gonna need
it's
some help.
it's going to come down to Bedlam. I haven't seen the playoff scenarios, like what needs to happen. But yes, we're in third place in the Big 12, but we do have the tiebreaker against Oklahoma. So if OSU beats Oklahoma, I think we're in the Big 12 title race. Like I said, I haven't seen the scenarios yet, but it could be interesting. Could be interesting. But yes, so we play Kansas State and Texas Tech next. Which, by the way, how about that field goal kicker, 62-yarder, unbelievable.
That was insane. That
So
was insane.
yeah, that was wild. I mean, big shouts to that guy. So, I mean, Baylor's in a decent spot considering we lost to TCU. We're in a good spot. So it's fun, man. It's fun.
Yeah, now let's bring in, don't want to feel like she's being left out here. Of course, we got in some football talk, so Shana, definitely pitch in if you have some stuff to say about this Big 12 craziness. But Shana, how you doing?
I'm doing good. North Texas won their homecoming game, so that's exciting considering we don't win a whole lot of games. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, Big 12 wise, was Texas Tech is bowl eligible now, and sorry, Josh, but Tech isn't. I mean, Texas isn't.
And they're probably not going to be. Let's just be real here. Probably not going to be. Bijan Robinson out for the year. A couple of other players out for the year as well.
Bro,
And
don't don't
who
let the
knows?
fact
Go ahead.
don't let the fact that Texas lost to Kansas in 2016 distract you from the fact that Texas lost to Kansas at home this week. I'm sorry.
That's
That's just
fine.
so funny to me.
Hey, it's fine. I mean, we are the most recent Big 12 team to win a national championship. So, we still have that to live on. So, we got to live in the past because we
Reaching.
can't. We got to live in the past because we can't live in the present right now with the way our team is. So, but I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, I think
I will
it's hard.
say
It's hard
for
not to.
the
It's hard not to panic, right? Because you want to think, okay, we got to fire our defensive coordinator. This would be their fourth defensive coordinator in 4 years if they fired and hired someone new. So I think there needs to be a little consistency. I think the thing that hurts the most is, do we see some people intertransfer? Do we lose some recruits? There's gonna be some work to be done by Steve Sarkisian heading into year 2 for sure with this program. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, people are already calling for Sark's head. I think we need to relax on that. You got to give people, in my opinion, at least 3 or 4 years so they can get their guys in. Because I went through this with Matt Rule. In Matt Rule's first year, we won one game. 2 years later, we're playing in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. So, but maybe there's a little bit more panic because Texas has consistently had a top 5 to 10 recruiting class every single year. So it's not from a lack of talent. It's just whether or not these kids are buying into Sark's message. And Sark was supposed to be a splash hire, a big time name coming to a big time program. It's not looking great in Austin right now. He can definitely turn the ship around, but man, he has an uphill battle ahead of him, I say.
Yeah, we're really about to find out a lot about Steve or Coach Sark and what he's made of because yeah, that loss was not ideal at all going into it. So let's talk playoffs now. Before we talk football, I do want to talk volleyball because state is happening this upcoming week. I'm
Heck
actually
yeah.
pulling up the brackets right now for it. If you give me
The
one
Final
second.
Fours are set.
So let me, yeah. So you talked about it. Final Four is set. So, hold on. I want to get this. Um, I'll start with Shana. Shana, you're gonna be there, correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to be there on Saturday for the state championship game. I think the biggest story coming out of our end is Lovejoy has made it to the state tournament for the 12th consecutive year. As we know, they have 11 state titles. But what's interesting is they have a brand new coach this season. As everybody knows, their coach retired last year. And it's great to see them do so well under new guidance.
Most definitely. And now that I have my bracket pulled up, we can talk about. I'm gonna run through all the teams real quick. 1A through 6A. So in 1A, you have Fayetteville taking on Sulphur Bluff, and then the other one is Verbest versus Blum. In 2A, you have Beckville taking on Crawford, and Wink taking on Thrall. In 3A, you have Lorena taking on Gunter, and Bushland taking on Columbus. 4A, Salina taking on Neville, Belleville taking on Decatur. 5A, Lucas Lovejoy taking on Manville, Canyon taking on Grapevine. And then in 6A, you have Brandeis taking on Bridgeland, Fort Bend Ridgepoint taking on Keller. So just up the top of in your heads, guys, is there any clear favorite? For me, it would be Brandeis. Brandeis seem to be on fire all year. They have 2 losses, and I'll find out who those 2 losses are in a second. I know it was at a tournament, I believe. Haven't lost any in district. So are there any teams that stand out to you as far as teams to be? Actually, they did lose one district game. Brandeis did. So I'm looking at their schedule now. They lost to Clark, and then they lost to Mater D. So not a lot of losses for them. But what do you think, guys? Any teams that stand out to you? Shane, I'll start with you.
I mean, obviously, Lovejoy always stands out. They are, if I'd have to fact check this, if not the winningest program, they're up there. But kind of dark horse this season is Salina. They've been incredible. They posted an undefeated district record. I think they really have it going for them this season to really pull it off. But if you look at this bracket, another thing to show was Decatur. I had them as number one in the entire Metroplex at the start of the season. And look, here they are, ready to take it and claim it.
How about you, Scott? Any teams of the ones I mentioned jump out to you as a team we should look out for?
I mean, definitely Brandeis, right? I mean, we talked a lot about Brandeis to start the season. They just seem like a team on a mission coming out of Region 4 there, so not really surprising. But it's still, when you're a team like Brandeis, I mean, we see it in any professional sports or whatnot, when you have that level of expectation, it's hard to live up to that level of expectation. So big shouts to Brandeis for making it to the state champ. They're in the mix, Final Four. That's what you want. That's all you can ask for at this point, to be in contention for a state championship. I think, to Shana's point, I mean, Lovejoy, what a program that they have there. And it's obviously built a lot for the coaching staff. Even with the new coach coming in there, they're still dominating. They're still Lovejoy. So I would say Lovejoy probably probably the favorite to win the 5A state championship. They play Manville out of here, the Houston area. Manville probably surprised people outside of themselves, making the state championship. And then on the other side, you got Carmel Canyon and Grapevine. Maybe Grapevine is a surprise team to make it there. Shana, I'm sure you have some thoughts on that too. But going up to 6A, a couple surprise teams that made it out of Houston were Bridgeland and Fort Bend Ridgepoint. Ridgepoint is a solid volleyball program. They've made it to multiple state championships here. I think like 3 or 4 out of the last 5 or 6 seasons, something like that. So, but they have some D1 commits on their team. But Bridgeland, shocking the world, beating the Woodlands. Man, didn't foresee Bridgeland coming out of Region 2 there. So big shout out to the Bridgeland Bears.
Yeah, now they get what is considered a power in Brandeis. So definitely should
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
good one.
Brandeis and Lovejoy got to be the favorites, right, to win 6A and 5A.
I would say don't sleep on Canyon in 5A. Canyon is a very good squad. Consistently in the running his last few years.
Yeah.
So I
I
could
mean, they won
easily see
43 games this year. That's no joke.
a Lovejoy Canyon a state final there. But yeah, any last thoughts, Shannon, before we move on to football?
Now I'm just excited to see how the state championship games and the whole tournament actually goes.
Yeah, and by the way, there was a tournament earlier in the year, and Canyon did play Lucas Lovejoy, and Lovejoy won that one 2-0. So yeah, so there is some tape, I guess you could say, on that one to go back and look at. So, but let's move on to football now. First round is behind us, and it kind of started on Thursday. When Childress lost to Stanton, but and this has been a theme that we've talked about all year. This has been the year that's kind of been a little crazy and topsy turvy, if you will, with teams winning that against teams you wouldn't think would win. And it happened again in round one. You usually don't see it that much in round one. 1A is an exception, really, because they're start with 30, or what is it, 16 and 32, right? So they have one less round than 2A through 6A. But in 1A or in 2A through 6A, for the most part, you usually see games expected, the way that they should go. So I got something to say after the question, but the question to you is, what was the most shocking exit in round one? Here's a few to come to mind right away, right? So Happy beating Spring Lake Earth in 1A. Again, certainly Childress beating Stanton, and San Antonio Johnson losing New Braunfels. That was a big one in the Austin San Antonio area. So what's the most shocking exit in round one, guys? And why was it Fort Bend Marshall, right? So Scott, let's start with you.
I mean, Fort Bend Marshall. That's next question. They were one of the favorites to win the state championship. They have Chris Marshall, the wide receiver, Jacoby Banks, the quarterback there. They were humming, beating teams like a drum all season long. Then they go and play Barbers Hill, and holy cow. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
I wonder.
Like it
I
just,
do wonder. I do
I don't
wonder
know.
if having Coach Absek definitely helped Barbers Hill in this case, right? I mean, Coach Absek is 1 year removed from being in the state title game as a coach for Cedar Park, so it's not like he's new. Coach Absek is new to facing tough opponents. So, do you think maybe that had anything to do with it, Scott?
1 billion%. There's no doubt in my mind. And look, I love Coach James Williams at Fort Bend Marshall. The guy is a football genius. But Absack, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he had his number or if he just had some tape or he just knew what was going on. But, I mean, this is the first year of Coach Absack at Barbers Hill, as you previously mentioned, took Cedar Park to the state championship last year, built a powerhouse program at Cedar Park, comes in the Barbers Hill, just shocks, I would say shocks the college or the Texas football world. I can't really, whenever I saw that, I was like, is this a typo? Like, what's going on here?
Well,
Unbelievable.
And
big shouts to the Barbers Hill Eagles.
At first, you look at their record, 6-5, or 6-4 at that point, or no, so it would be 5-5 heading into the playoffs. 4-3 in district, which is 4, so that they got in by the skin of their teeth. But then you look at some of their opponents, right? They lost to Katy Paytap. They lost to Port Arthur Memorial, which, by the way, they're out after the first round. They lost to Crosby. They lost to Port Neches Grove. They lost to Texas City. So they lost to quality opponents, right? So it's not like some of their losses were, I think all but Port Arthur Memorial are in the second round currently. So, it's not like they lost to nobodies.
All due respect, those teams are not Fort Bend Marshall.
Well,
they're just not.
They're not, but they're all in the second round, and Fort Bend Marshall's not. So, I mean, that's something to say right there. Shana, let me turn it over to you real quick. Is this for you? Is this the most shocking exit in round one? If not, what was the most shocking exit in round one for you?
I would say that this is definitely the most shocking exit in round one. To see Barbers Hill come in and beat Fort Bend Marshall, I saw that and my mind was blown. Other than that, like you said, New Braunfels, when you texted me that you said there could be magic, I was like, oh, he was right.
Yeah, we talked about that very briefly. What was it, Friday or Thursday? I forget when our show was last week, Thursday or Friday, about, hey, could there be some magic in with these unicorns? And sure enough, there was. Scott, do you have any last things to say about Fort Bend Marshall? Because I have some other stuff to say, but I want to make sure you get a last word in if you need to.
No, I mean, I'm flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted. I mean, I feel bad for Fort Bend Marshall because, like, they probably win that game 8 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times. I don't know. And look, it's not a knock on Barbers Hill. It's just Fort Bend Marshall or those dudes. There's a reason why they were favored to win the state championship or at least make it to the state game against Aledo. And, hey, look, credit where credit is due. Barbers Hill clearly outplayed them, won that game. So congratulations to the Barbers Hill Eagles.
Well, hey, and that's why when given the chance, Barbers Hill jumped on the
opportunity. That's why he played the game.
Well, and that's why Barbers Hill took the opportunity to bring in Coach Absek for situations like this. I'll tell you, one that wasn't surprising to me, and it might have been surprising at first glance, is Georgetown beats Buda Johnson to move on to the second round. They were a fourth place team in their district. They had to win their last game to get in, but it's not that surprising when you go back and look at their schedule. 4 of their 5 losses, they lost by 4 points on all 4 of those games. So a combined 16 points, right? So each game, they lost to Belton, they lost to Cedar Park, they lost to Liberty Hill and Maynard. They lost to all those teams by 4 points. All those Cedar Park, Liberty Hill, Maynard, all in the second round. Belton lost in the first round in Duncanville, which Cedar Park had a little bit of an upset, I would say. So, or no, I'm sorry, Georgetown didn't beat Buda Johnson. That's my bad.
They beat Dripping Springs.
Exactly. Cedar Park beat Buda Johnson. That was a very good game. But yeah, so Georgetown beat Dripping Springs, which was undefeated up to that point.
Shocking.
But again, it's shocking a little bit, but again, not that much, because when you look at those games, Georgetown lost 4 of their games by 4 points each, right? So combined 16 points. They lose their last one, or the last game they lost was to Weiss. They lost that game pretty convincingly, which Weiss is a very good team. And now Weiss faces Banville. That's going to be a good matchup in week 2. So, but yeah, so I would say somewhat of a surprise, but not that surprising when you go and look at Georgetown and how many close games they played in this year. Georgetown was prepared. They were ready for Dripping Springs. Were there any other, maybe before we move on to the next question, were there maybe any other upsets But they weren't surprising upsets like Georgetown beating Dripping Springs. Shana, let's start with you. Were there any kind of games that you saw where teams won, but it's like, okay, you know what, that's a little bit surprising, but you know what, this team, I could see them winning, like in the Georgetown case.
Yeah, so for me in my area, what I thought was surprising, but not too surprising, was Prosper beating Flower Mound Marcus. Um, it, to me, it was also probably one of the most exciting games of the week. I was really impressed by them beating them in overtime with Harrison Rosar throwing the game-winning 5-yard touchdown. Um, I went into this week thinking Flower Mound Marcus would pull that off, but Prosper's been really surprising this season for me.
Yeah, that one was definitely a good game. I mean, people were wondering, was that win over Allen a fluke for Prosper? I think this one shows that, hey, it's not that much of a fluke. Scotty, let me turn it over to you. Any surprising but not surprising victories that you saw this past week?
Well, I have more surprising victories uh, that we can get to here in a sec, but surprising but not surprising. Boswell over VR Eaton over in Shana's area, the Metroplex. Um, I was kind of surprised to see that. I'm not going to lie. I think Eaton had a pretty decent shot to at least win 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. So the other one that kind of jumped, well, no, that's more of an upset. Or
Go ahead. Let's talk about that. If you do have any upsets, let's go ahead and talk about that too. I'm open game here, Scott. Open mic.
Okay, all right. So Klein Oak taking down Cypress Ranch was 49-35. That was an interesting matchup. That was kind of a toss-up in my mind of who really was just coming out ready to play. The other one was Bridgeland over Klein Collins. That was a really good game. Bridgeland won. They have Connor Wigman. He scored a touchdown with about 12, 15 seconds left in the game. So, because Klein Collins was a very good team. And so that was a tough first round matchup for Bridgeland. So that was Bridgeland escapes in the first round.
What about that? And we talked about this one, and this could be where you're going. Me and Shane talked about this one on Friday. Are you about to talk about Side Park and Tomball, Scott?
I mean, Tomball. Yes. People were predicting Side Park to make it all the way to the regional finals, probably against I'm looking at the bracket here. Who are they going to place? Probably, or at least all the way to Rockwall Heath. That was an interesting matchup. Cy Park losing, in my opinion, really opens up the door for Rockwall Heath to make it to the Region 2 finals. Who they face there, I don't know, because Bridgeland's probably going to beat College Park. And I don't Tyler Legacy, would you call that an upset over Garland? Because I think I would.
Oh, definitely a little bit of an upset right there.
Yeah.
100% agree with you.
Was that Cedar Hill and Bryan score correct, 10-5?
Let me check on that, but I would assume it's correct. You said Cedar Hill game. Let me check while you talk.
Yeah, so Region 2 D2 is very interesting to me because with Garland going down, it potentially opens up for a Bridgeland versus Rockwall Heath Region 2 final. And definitely with Cy Park going down, Rockwall Heath has a clearer path to coming out of Region 2. Willis upsetting Decaney, big win for Willis, first playoff win in I don't even know how long, so congrats to the Willis Wildcats, Wildcat Nation. So the other upset that I had was, no, I can't say that. Louisville taking down McKinney Boyd. I'm
Team
sad.
Destiny.
I'm sad for the
Team
McKinney Boyd Broncos. I thought they were going to win at least 2 playoff games here. They go down in week 1, so congrats to Louisville. But I feel sad for my McKinney Boyd Broncos.
But yeah, it was a 10-5 game, by the way, Scott. So, but yeah, it seems like it could shape up for Bridgeland, Rockwall Heath, Region 2 final there. So, any other games, any upsets you want to talk about, or should we move on to week 2?
I mean, at least in Region 3, everything played out the way I thought it would. Cy-Fair taking down Lamar 16-14. That was a really close game, but there was one upset that is worth mentioning in Region 3. Dawson taking down Clear Falls. Clear Falls had a good squad down there, and they went down 35-31. Dawson had a tough loss to Pearland in the last week of the regular season, so Dawson bounces back and move on to the second round of the playoffs. Region 3, D2, kind of weak-ish, except for Katy, so I'm still expecting a Katy versus Westlake state semifinal.
Yeah, although and this kind of actually you mentioning Katie brings me to our next question. That's what games are you most looking forward to this week? So not necessarily these aren't maybe the toughest games, or we'll talk about that in a minute. But what games are you most looking forward to? I think Stratford and Katy can definitely be interesting. I don't know if Stratford's going to have enough, but I think if Stratford can bring its A game, they're gonna definitely challenge Katy. I think Rockwall and DeSoto is another good matchup. We talked about the potential for Ridgepoint
Bro,
and Dickinson.
hold on.
Go ahead. I was going to run through something. Go through.
No, yeah, my bad. I just want to chime in. Rockwall and DeSoto could be potentially a regional final matchup, and the fact that they're meeting in the second round of the playoffs is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We talk about Dickinson and Ridgepoint potentially having a rematch, but they got to get past that Tascasita first. And even though Gavin Sessions isn't there anymore, I think Tascasita does have enough in them to make a little run. Potentially get back to. I think if I'm not mistaken, let me pull up the brackets here. But they could probably see a North Shore again. Let me get to 6A D1 here. So yeah, there's a chance we could see Tascasita and North Shore in that Region 3 final. So even without Gavin Sessions, I think Tascasita has it in them. We talk about in my area, Bowie and Smithson Valley should be a really good game, as well as Liberty Hill and Bernie Champion.
Yep.
We got one I'll leave out because I think it's the toughest game, or the toughest matchup in round 2, so I won't talk about it yet. And then you have El Campo and Lindell. So Lindell made the state championship last year. I think El Campo has everything in them to make it this year. And then in the smaller rounds, you have Jonesboro versus May. I have May making the state championship and winning. I think Shana, you have Jonesboro doing it. So big time matchup in 1A right there. But let's turn it over to you guys. And Shana, let's come to you first. What games are you most looking forward to in week 2? Oh, you're muted there, Shana. Still can't hear you.
You pulled a me.
Let's turn. How about this? While you work on that, let's turn it over to Scott. And Scott, what games are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, I got my schedule up here. Rockwall versus DeSoto is one that really jumps out. I'm curious to see how Lake Travis does against East Central. I think East Central. Would you call that an upset over San Antonio Reagan?
It was definitely an upset, but here's what I'll tell you, because I've seen these two play because they both played San Marcos. This should be a cakewalk for Lake Travis. San Marcos came in and beat East Central. Now you would think, that should have been a cakewalk for Reagan, and East Central pulled off the upset there. So but I'm definitely favoring Lake Travis in that one.
Okay, yeah, Bowie, Smithson Valley, I really like. Atascocita and Dickinson, two pretty good teams there. Jersey Village and Tompkins, that's a good game. Stratford versus Katy, though, that'll be a really good game. Let's see who else. Vandergrift versus Cibolo Steel.
That's
Keep an eye on that one.
Definitely a good game.
I don't know if that was your pick, Josh, but that one's going to be a tough matchup, and whoever wins that game could potentially face Westlake in the regional Region 4 finals in Division 2. The other ones, Guy versus Dallas Jesuit seems interesting, but I don't know if that really gets me excited here. 5A, though, that's where things get tough. Paytown versus Manor, Manville versus Weiss. I mean, that Region 3 and 5A D1 is outrageous. Like, I'm looking at it right now. That looks nuts.
Here,
Denton Ryan versus Mag West.
Let's say, you said 5A D1, right?
Yeah, 5A D1 Region 3 is brutal.
Let's do this. Let's show the audience at home. There you go. 5A D1.
Okay.
Just look at that bracket right there. Yeah, this one is a very good bracket. Some very tough matchups, not only on the right side but the left side as well. So, Shana, let's see if your volume's working now, and let's see if we got some games you're most looking forward to. So still muted. Could be your AirPods. I know that's sometimes a problem with Matt. Do me a favor. Go ahead and log out and log back in, and let's see if that works for me. And while we'll do that, let's show some smaller schools. Let's try to show some smaller schools some love while she does that. Looking at some of these, I'm trying to get to the 3A realms. I'm interested to see Poteet. I think again in 3A D1, I think Poteet has the potential to maybe get to the Region 4 final. It sounds like Shayna's back. I hear some coffee shop background. Shayna, are you back?
Okay, I think I'm back. It was the AirPods.
There you go.
No, I was just gonna say, obviously, I'm excited for Bevo versus Pleasanton. Not only is it gonna be a big game and a big rivalry, but it's now our newest in staff rivalry. Um, Other than that, I think the one I'm most excited to see is Rockwall and DeSoto. I think it has the potential to be one of the best games this week. And then not so much a game I'm excited to see, but a player I'm excited to watch. Owen Allen with South Lake Carroll. I don't know if you saw that he broke the record for South Lake Carroll's all-time leading rusher, breaking Trey Newton's previous record of 4,741 yards. I think he's going to be really fun to watch against Midland Legacy.
Yeah, I like that. I was gonna save the Pleasanton versus Bevo one. So of course, for those that don't know, my alma mater is Pleasanton, and Shayna's is Bevo. So got a little bit of a rivalry going this week. I was actually thinking about maybe going to that game, but then got called up to work to work another game. So won't be able to go to that one, but should be a good one. Their only common opponent was Somerset. Pleasanton lost that one by 7. Beeville lost that one by, I believe, if I saw it right, 13. So it should be a highly contested game. I think that one can go either way. But let's move on to the final question for this show, and that's, what do you think is the toughest second round matchup? I'll go first, and I think it's College Station versus Frisco Lone Star. Lone Star has 2 losses on the season. College Station has 0, but Lone Star's only 2 losses are to Denton Ryan by 1 point, 7-6 game right there, and then a 10-point loss to Aledo. So very, very tough schedule for them. And when they had to play those tough teams, they may not have come out on top, but they certainly were close games. And I think this could be College Station's toughest game by far this year. What say you guys? Scott, I'll come to you first. What to you is the toughest second round matchup that you see on paper?
On paper, man, it's got to be the DeSoto game, right? I mean, DeSoto versus Rockwall. Just because Rockwall and Rockwall Keith, like both those schools are just, we saw them play against each other, right? The double overtime game, like those teams are really solid. As I mentioned, that Rockwall and DeSoto game, I mean, that has the potential to be a regional final game. So that region 2 D1 is just, that's tough. I mean, even though Spring's playing Klein Kane, I expect Spring to win. Like, that's going to be a tough game too. And then whoever wins that game is going to play Duncanville probably. Like, this region 2 D1 is nuts. And then the other one, Josh, I mean, maybe I'll defer to you on this, but I can't decide between Paytown and Manor and Weiss versus Manville. Like those games are going to be tough.
Yeah, those games are pretty interesting when you look at them, because you think, I mean, I would say in the past you think, and just looking at them this year, you think Paytown and Manville both have to be the favorites, but Weiss and Manor are really impressive. Manor, especially with Quentin Joyner, that kid is a stud athlete. I mean, you let him, if you keep Manor in the game, he has a chance to really to pick apart the defense. So Paytown's definitely got to keep him in check. And then Weiss has really impressed me this year. I think any of those two games can be toss-ups as well. But all that, it looks like 5A D1, really, when you look at it now, that's the 5A D1 has all the tough matchups, right? Because College Station and Frisco Lone Star are also right there, sitting on the left side of the bracket.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then whoever wins that game is probably going to play Highland Park, which is tough. I mean, and then at the top of the bracket, you got Denton Ryan. It could be Denton Ryan and Mag West. Well, honestly, it could be the toughest game.
When you look at it, I mean, we talk about, because you talk about that district, right? Paytown, Manville, and Hightower. But now it's like, Georgetown might have a chance against Hightower. I mean, nobody thought they would beat Dripping Springs. So I don't think that's the toughest one. I still think the toughest one's College Station and Frisco Lone Star. But let's turn it over to Shana. Shana, what is the toughest matchup for you in week 2?
So I have to go ahead and say Frisco Lone Star and College Station. I do want to point out that their loss against Alito was a very it was 10 points, but Garrett Rangel went down in that game, and ever since he's been back, he's been on a mission, as he always is. Like Mala Testa said earlier this season, it feels like Rangel's been playing for them for 10 years. He's seasoned. He has what it takes. It's going to be a really interesting game against College Station.
Should be indeed, and I think it's going to be interesting to see because this should be a close game, and so if it is a close game, I think that's where Frisco can get College Station, because College Station's closest game was a 21-point win, and so they haven't really had a challenge as far as staying in close games, whereas Frisco Lone Star has. So very good game. If there's one game for me, that's it. Scott, any last thoughts on these games before we move on to our closing segments?
Nah, man, all good. I had a little point. I had a question for everybody. Like, which game is the most difficult to predict who's gonna win? Like, I was looking at the brackets. Like, I have no idea who's gonna win the Memorial versus Cinco Ranch game. I just have a clue who's gonna win that one. Another one is interesting. I mentioned Dawson Summer Creek earlier. Like, who's gonna win the CE King and Shadow Creek game? I don't know. Like, so who? I would say CE King versus Shadow Creek might be the toughest for me to call. Is there any other games that you think like, man, I have no idea who's going to win?
I mean, I think obviously there's a ton of them, right?
It could be the hardest. It doesn't make it the hardest game, but who's the most difficult to predict?
I think it's College Station and Frisco Lone Star. I mean, if I'm being honest with you, it's the toughest and it's the hardest to call, because I think that game could go either way, if I'm being honest. But Shane, let me turn it over to you. What do you think about Scott's question there?
For me, I'm going to say that's Prosper and Grand Prairie. Like I said, Prosper's posted some pretty surprising wins, but they've also had some pretty surprising losses, like against McKinney Boyd, right after coming off of the high of the win over Allen. I think it's going to be fun to watch Prosper play. Grand Prairie is a very good team this year, and like you said, Prosper's trying to prove that win over Allen wasn't a fluke, and let's see how far they can take it in playoffs.
Yeah, we got some great matchups in round 2, folks, and I'm sure we'll take a look at some of those come Thursday and Friday and really predict those. Hey, of course, you can't forget the Battle of Texas, Texas High versus Texas City. I can't forget that one. But before we get out of here today, of course, we have to go to our favorite segment of the show. That's right. It's Who's That Mascot? That's where I give Scott the name of a school, and he has to tell me the mascot of that school. Now, Scotty, I don't know if you were paying attention before the show, but I accidentally left one of those up that had pre, so you may have one already, but I'll give it to you, regardless. It's one that I think you should have gotten right because it's a Houston area school anyways, but we'll see if you – I don't know if you saw it or not, but if you didn't, that's okay. So, of course, Shana, you are allowed to help. Try not to, maybe let's see how he can do first. Only if he really needs you, but let's go. I think there's a chance. So Scott did go 3-0 last week. Let's point that out. Did go 3-0 last week for the first time, I think.
Ever.
And he had the lucky Carrizo Springs pick. Shane, I had picked that because I thought you might be on the show and you'd be able to help him with that one. But he was able to pull that one out. So I do think you can go 3-0 this one.
I don't even remember who I guessed. Like, did I guess? It wasn't the Mustangs.
No.
I don't even remember who I guessed.
Shana, do you know? Let's see if you know this mascot.
I can't remember. I want to say Panthers.
It is not the Panthers. It is, and this is surprising because they were 10-0, and they actually lost in the first round. So a little bit of an upset for Carrizo Springs going into the first round, but they were the Wildcats, which you guessed, Scott. So they're
booyah. Yep. See, that was total from the clouds.
But here we go. It is time for Who's That Mascot, and your first school is Dallas Christian. Lost to Regents in the finals last year for the state championship off of pick 6. Of course, they were on the wrong end of that one. Dallas Christian.
Oh, I really should know this. I'm gonna get roasted for not knowing this.
So I'm going to let you guess, and
I'm gonna say the Knights.
Okay, the Knights. Now, Shayna, should he change his answer? And if so, what should he change his answer to?
He should change his answer, and he should change it to the DCS Chargers.
All right, so
Chargers.
that's
That
what she
sounds
says.
right.
So Scott, are you going to change your answer?
Yes, I will.
All right, then you are correct. They are the Dallas Christian Chargers. All right, you ready for your next one?
Yes.
Your next one is Montgomery.
Montgomery Bears.
No hesitation whatsoever. We're going to let this timer play out. Shayna, should he change his answer?
I don't think he should change his answer.
That is the right call. It is the Montgomery Bears. Oh, off to a hot start. So last one, somewhat of a power in football, which is why I chose them. West Orange Stark. He's going for that perfect.
Is it the Owls?
3-0. All right, Shayna, should he change his answer?
He should.
All right, he should.
Oh,
what should he change it to, Shayna?
If he knows the same as Saxy, he would know that it's the Mustang.
All right, Scott, do you want to change your answer to the West Orange Stark Mustangs?
Sure, yes. Yes, I do.
That is a good choice. 3-0 again. West Orange Stark Mustangs. Scotty coming in with that. Not only the 3-0 record, but it looks like you've gotten your free sandwich. Is that your free sandwich?
I like to give a shout out to Jackson, who works over here. Di Pasquale. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. Yes, Di Pasquale. Because we had a sandwich bet. Got a nice little Jersey Mike's. Cut the check, Jersey Mike's. Product placement. Not really. Not a sponsor. We had a little sandwich bet on the Woodlands and Spring game. I took Spring. He took the Woodlands. So got my sandwich out of it. Booyah.
Well, there you go. Well, hey, this could be what you're going to mention in our last segment, and that's one good thing. So, folks, one good thing is where myself, Shayna, Scott, we give you our one good thing of the week. That could be sports related, that could be life related, what have you. So, Scott, is this your one good thing as far as for this week? Is it your free sandwich?
I mean, free sandwich is always a good thing, but honestly, it's got to be the Baylor Bears. The fact that Baylor took down Oklahoma was it was unreal. Because look, I grew up a Baylor fan. I grew up going to games where Baylor lost to Oklahoma by an unworldly amount of points. So the fact that Baylor is just even in the conversation now. Sorry, I had to switch sandwiches. The fact that Baylor's in a conversation and beating Oklahoma, it really hits home for me. And so that's why Baylor beating Oklahoma is my one good thing.
Shayna, let's turn it over to you now. What is your one good thing for the week?
I got to give a shout out to Beeville. Beating Laferia twice in the season, especially in a big playoff win, that's big. I think the last time they've been this far was when I was a sophomore in high school and they made it to the regional quarterfinals. Hoping they can do it again. Hoping they can go as far as possible this season, obviously. So I'm going to say that's my one good thing was Beeville winning this last weekend.
They definitely I think once whoever wins that one, Beeville or Pleasanton, they're going to face Cal Allen most likely in that round. And sorry to say, I don't think either of them could beat Cal Allen. I think Beeville actually lost to Cal Allen this year already, so if I'm not mistaken. So good luck to whoever wins that game. But definitely one good thing. I agree as well. Excuse me. Pleasanton had LBJ last year and got bounced in the first round. So, it's good for them to get that playoff win against Lampasas. Mine won't be sports related. I know y'all's twos were sports related. Mine's not going to be sports related today. Mine's going to be, and it's kind of, a couple of weeks old already, but, Yellowstone's back, baby. Episode 3 last night. So Yellowstone's back. And also, if you haven't watched it, it's made by one of the creators of Yellowstone, Mayor of Kingstown. I watched episode 1 last night, and that's pretty good. So definitely a fan of Yellowstone, though. So if you haven't seen the new season yet, or if you haven't watched any of the seasons, check them out. I'll ask both of you. Either y'all watch Yellowstone? Give me
Nope.
Hand raise if you do. Scotty, oh, I think you would. I think you would like. Or have you tried it, Scotty?
It's on the to-do list.
It's a good one.
watch.
I think you'll like it. Shana, are you? Have you watched Yellowstone, Shana?
I've seen the first season, and then it's not on Paramount Plus, so I can't stream any of the other seasons, and I don't want to start season 4 without 2 and 3.
You may be able, if you have YouTube TV, you may be able to get it. I actually watch it through Peacock. I think the first the 3 seasons. So, but definitely check it out if you haven't yet, folks. Yellowstone is great. So that is going to do it for our show today. We'll be back maybe tomorrow, but if not, Thursday or Friday for sure. Of course, we'll preview some of the games coming up. And yeah, that's it, folks. So thanks for tuning in and hearing us talk some by district playoff results. And we'll see you at the games.